The storm clouds gathered over downtown Chicago like dark omens as Sophie Chen gripped the steering wheel of her weathered Toyota. Behind her seat sat carefully wrapped canvases, 3 original paintings commissioned for the Harrison Gallery's prestigious autumn exhibition. Each piece represented 6 months of sleepless nights and borrowed hope. This single commission could change everything. Her phone lit up with another incoming call. Riverside Elementary School flashed across the screen. Sophie's heart sank. Little Oliver. She couldn't answer now. Not while navigating through rush-hour traffic with artwork worth $15,000 secured precariously in her backseat. The money would cover 3 months of rent, art supplies, and maybe even Oliver's school trip to the Science Museum he wouldn't stop talking about. The weight of single motherhood drain began pelting the windshield as Sophie emerged onto Michigan Avenue. The gallery closed at 5 o'clock sharp, and her dashboard clock read for 30. Traffic crawled forward at an agonizing pace. Her phone rang again. This time she pulled into a loading zone, engine still running, and answered Miss Chen. "This is Principal Morrison from Riverside Elementary. We have a situation with Oliver. His teacher, Mrs. Williams, had a family emergency, and we're closing the after-school program early today. You need to collect him by 5:15. Sophie closed her eyes, fighting back the familiar panic that came with impossible choices. "Can you please keep him until 5:30? I have a critical delivery for the Harrison Gallery. Without this sale, we might lose our apartment. I'm truly sorry. But our insurance doesn't cover extended hours without proper staffing. School policy is firm on this matter." The call ended. Sophie sat frozen, watching rain stream down her windows. She built her entire life on careful balance. Every decision calculated to protect Oliver while chasing her dream of becoming a recognized artist. Now that balance teetered on the edge of collapse, decisions. Made in desperation, Sophie checked her GPS. If she drove fast enough, she could reach the gallery by 4:50, drop the paintings, and make it to Oliver's school by 5:20. Close enough. She pulled back into traffic, pressing harder on the accelerator than she should have. Her mind drifted to Oliver's face that morning, his serious brown eyes studying her as she prepared his lunch. "You're going to be famous someday, Mommy. Then we won't have to worry anymore." The intersection at State Street in Madison appeared ahead. The traffic light turned amber. Sophie knew she should brake. Every responsible part of her screamed to stop. But Oliver needed her. The gallery needed those paintings. She needed this chance. She pressed down on the gas pedal when everything shatters from her right side. Motion exploded into view. A commercial van, enormous and unstoppable, barreled through its red light. The driver's horrified expression burned into Sophie's vision for one eternal second. She jerked the steering wheel left. Too late. The impact sounded like the end of the world. Metal crumpled. Glass exploded in a shower of diamonds. The airbag punched into her chest, stealing her breath. Her car spun, tumbled, and slammed into a light pole. In the back seat, her paintings flew free, canvas and frames scattering across wet pavement. Then silence. Then darkness. Across the city. Another life, 10 miles away in the glass and steel tower that dominated Chicago's skyline. Vincent Castellano stood before floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. At 37 years old, he commanded Castellano Industries with absolute authority. His empire stretched across renewable energy, tech innovation, and real estate development. Forbes had just named him one of the world's youngest. Billionaires, his executive team, sat around the conference table behind him, waiting for his decision on the merger proposal. $20 billion hung in the balance. Vincent's charcoal gray suit fit perfectly, his dark hair impeccably styled. His presence commanding the room without effort. "Finalize the acquisition," he said, his voice carrying quiet certainty. "I want green tech solutions integrated into our portfolio by the end of the quarter. This positions us ahead of every competitor in sustainable energy." The board members exchanged satisfied glances. Vincent's assistant, Robert, monitored stock prices on his tablet near the door. Everything moved according to Vincent's precise calculations. Nothing surprised him anymore. He had learned long ago that control meant survival. The call that changes. Everything Vincent's private cell phone vibrated in his pocket. Only 6 people possessed that number. He ignored it, continuing his presentation. The phone buzzed again, persistent and urgent. A flicker of unease crossed his features. "Excuse me," he said, stepping away from the table. The caller ID read Natalie Foster. He hadn't heard that name in 7 years. Natalie had been Sophie's roommate from art school. Sophie, whose memory he had locked away in the deepest corner of his heart. Sophie, who had accepted money from his mother and disappeared while he was closing a deal in London. Sophie, who had taught him that love was just another transaction. His finger hovered over the decline button. He answered, "Vincent." Thank God. Natalie's voice cracked with tears. "It's Sophie. There was an accident. A terrible accident. She's at Chicago Memorial Hospital. They said critical condition. They don't know if she'll survive." The conference room dissolved into background noise. Vincent's hand tightened around the phone until his knuckles turned white. What happened? She was rushing to deliver paintings for a gallery showing. A van ran a red light at State and Madison. "Vincent, I know you probably hate her after everything. I know what your mother told you. But Sophie is alone, and she might die. And there's Oliver." The truth revealed Vincent's world tilted on its axis. "Who is Oliver?" "Her son. He's 7 years old. The school called me because I'm listed as emergency contact. I'm in Seattle for a conference. I can't get there until tomorrow. Please, Vincent. Please go to her. Go to him. 7 years old." The calculation hit Vincent like a physical blow. 7 years since Sophie vanished. 9 months of pregnancy. His throat constricted. Breathing became difficult. "I'm on my way," he heard himself say. Everything changed as Vincent turned back to face his executive team. Their expressions shifted from confidence to confusion as they saw his face. "Robert, cancel everything. The merger, the press briefings, all scheduled meetings." "Sir?" Robert stammered. "We'll lose the green tech deal if we don't sign today. They have other offers on the table. Then we lose it," Vincent said, already striding toward the door. Pulling off his suit jacket. Some things matter more than money. His team sat in stunned silence. Vincent Castellano never walked away from billion-dollar deals. He never let emotion override strategy. He never showed weakness. The elevator ride down felt endless. Vincent's mind spun through memories he had buried under mountains of work and wealth. Sophie, laughing in his college apartment, paint smudged on her cheek. The way she challenged his arrogance pushed him to think beyond profit margins. The night they watched the sunrise from Navy Pier, her head on his shoulder. Talking about dreams that seemed possible together, the morning he returned from London to find her gone. Just a note in bank statements, showing she had accepted $2 million from Victoria Castellano. His mother had been sympathetic. "I'm sorry, darling, but she revealed her true nature. Some people only want what money can buy. You're better off without her." He had believed it because believing hurt less than questioning. He had built his empire on the foundation of that betrayal, using anger as fuel for ambition. Racing toward truth. If Sophie had a 7-year-old son, if that boy was his, then everything he built his life upon was a lie. Vincent's private car waited at the tower entrance. Hospital, Chicago Memorial. Emergency entrance. Now the driver nodded, seeing something in Vincent's expression that demanded no questions as the car sped through Chicago streets. Rain hammering against the windows, Vincent stared at his reflection in the glass. Somewhere in this city, a woman he once loved fought for her life. Somewhere, a child waited who might carry his eyes. His blood, his future, the truth waited like a storm, ready to tear apart everything Vincent thought he understood about love, betrayal. In the 7 years he spent building walls around his heart, traffic parted as the car raced forward. Vincent's hands clenched into fists. After 7 years of silence, fate had crashed back into his carefully controlled existence, and nothing would ever be the same again. Chicago Memorial Hospital rose like a fortress of hope and despair against the darkening sky. Vincent's car screeched to a halt at the emergency entrance. He barely waited for the vehicle to stop before throwing open the door and striding toward the automatic glass doors. His heart hammered against his ribs, a sensation he hadn't experienced in years. Control had always been his strongest weapon, but now it crumbled with each step. The emergency room buzzed with controlled chaos. Nurses rushed between curtained areas. Monitors beeped in rhythmic urgency. The smell of antiseptic and fear hung thick in the air. Vincent approached the reception desk, where a tired-looking woman typed rapidly on her computer, Sophie Chen. He said his voice harder than he intended. She was brought in from a car accident. Where is she? The receptionist glanced up, taking in his expensive watch and commanding presence. Are you family? Vincent hesitated for only a moment. I'm her partner, the father of her son. Confronting reality, the lie came easily, born from desperation. The receptionist's expression softened slightly as she checked her screen. Miss Chen is in surgery. Trauma Bay 3. The surgical waiting area is on the second floor. Someone will update you when there's news. Vincent turned toward the elevators, his mind racing. He found Natalie in the waiting room, pacing near the windows. She looked exhausted, her dark hair pulled into a messy knot, her eyes red from crying. When she saw Vincent, relief flooded her features. You came, she breathed. I wasn't sure you would. Where is he? Vincent demanded. Where is Oliver? Still at school. They're keeping him in the office until someone can pick him up. They close at 6 o'clock. Natalie checked her phone. That's in 45 minutes. Vincent looked at the surgery board on the wall. Sophie's name glowed in red letters next to the words "in progress." His chest tightened. Tell me what happened. Everything the truth unfolds. Natalie sank into one of the plastic chairs, her hands trembling. Sophie never took your mother's money, Vincent. She never wanted it. Your mother told her that you knew about the payment, that you had orchestrated it. It's a way to end things cleanly before your company went public. Vincent felt the ground shift beneath him. That's a lie. I never knew my mother contacted her, Victoria told. Sophie, that you couldn't risk a relationship with a struggling artist damaging your business reputation. She said you were too proud to break up directly, so you arranged for the money transfer to make Sophie leave on her own. Natalie's voice cracked. Sophie was devastated. She was also pregnant. The words hit Vincent like physical blows. He gripped the back of a chair to steady himself. She was pregnant when she left. 2 months. She found out the week after you went to London. She was planning to tell you when you returned. Then your mother showed up at our apartment with a check and those lies. Sophie tried calling you, but Victoria had already convinced your assistant to block her number. Every email bounced back. Pieces of a shattered past. Vincent's mind reeled. He remembered that time. His mother had been unusually involved in his schedule, insisting he'd focus on the London merger without distractions. She had handled his communications personally, claiming to protect him from gold diggers who emerged whenever his net worth appeared in the news. Why didn't Sophie fight harder? Vincent's voice came out raw. Why didn't she show up at my office? Confront me directly. Natalie met his eyes with something between pity and anger. She tried. 3 times. Security turned her away each time. Your mother had flagged her as a potential threat. By the 3rd attempt, Sophie was 4 months pregnant and broke. She couldn't afford our apartment anymore without her teaching assistant job, which she'd lost because of morning sickness. Vincent closed his eyes, seeing his carefully constructed world collapse. He had built an empire on the foundation of betrayal that never happened. He had spent 7 years hating a woman who had been as much a victim as he was. A mother's manipulation. Where did she go? He asked quietly. Milwaukee, then back here 2 years ago? She worked 3 jobs while finishing her art degree online. She raised Oliver alone. Natalie's voice hardened. Do you know what she told me once? She said she was grateful in a way because Oliver was the greatest gift she'd ever received. She said if your mother's lies were the price for having him, she'd pay it again. Vincent felt something break inside his chest. My mother destroyed us. Your mother protected her vision of your future. Natalie stood up. But that doesn't matter right now. Sophie is fighting for her life in that operating room. Oliver is waiting at a school, terrified and alone. You need to decide what kind of man you're going to be. The one your mother raised or the one Sophie fell in love with? Racing against time, Vincent checked his watch. 30 minutes until the school closed. I'll get Oliver. Stay here. Call me the second you hear anything about Sophie. He practically ran to the elevator, his phone already out, dialing his driver. The car met him at the entrance. Vincent gave the address for Riverside Elementary, and the vehicle surged forward through evening traffic. His hands shook as he stared out the window. Somewhere in the city, a 7-year-old boy waited. His son. A child he never knew existed because of his mother's calculated cruelty. Vincent had spent years believing himself betrayed, and he was actually the weapon used to destroy the woman he loved. First meeting Riverside. Elementary was a modest brick building, with colorful murals painted along the playground walls. Vincent's expensive car looked absurdly out of place in the parking lot. He strode through the front entrance, where a security guard directed him to the main office. Through the glass window, Vincent saw him. A small boy sat on a bench, clutching a worn backpack decorated with planets and stars. His dark hair fell across his forehead in waves identical to Sophie's. But when the boy looked up, Vincent's own gray eyes stared back at him. The resemblance was undeniable, shocking, and completely beautiful. Principal Morrison approached. You must be here for Oliver Chen. Are you on the approved pickup list? I'm Vincent Castellano, Oliver's father. There was an accident. His mother is in surgery. The principal's expression shifted from suspicion to sympathy. Oh my goodness. Poor child. He's been so worried. Let me get him. Father and son Chi opened the office door. Oliver, there's someone here for you. The boy stood up slowly, his small face cautious but hopeful. His eyes found Vincent and widened slightly. Are you from the hospital? Is my mom okay? Vincent knelt down, bringing himself to eye level with his son. The movement felt natural, despite never having done it before. I'm Vincent. I'm an old friend of your mother's. She's hurt, but doctors are taking care of her right now. I'm going to take you to see her. Oliver studied him with unnerving intelligence. You have my eyes. Grandma Natalie said my dad has gray eyes like mine. Are you my dad? Truth without lies. The question hung in the air. Vincent could feel the principal watching, feel the weight of this moment. He made a choice in that instant to never lie to this child, to never repeat the patterns of deception that had stolen 7 years from all of them. Yes, he said softly. I'm your dad. I only just found out about you today, but yes, I'm your father. Oliver's lower lip trembled. Where were you? Mom said you didn't know about me. She said sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but it doesn't mean they don't love you. Vincent felt tears burn behind his eyes, something he hadn't experienced since childhood. I made a terrible mistake. I let someone lie to me, and I believed those lies instead of fighting for the truth. But I'm here now, and I promise you, Oliver, I will never leave you or your mother again. A leap of faith, the boy searched his face for what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, Oliver reached out and took Vincent's hand. His small fingers wrapped around Vincent's with surprising strength. Okay, let's go. Save my mom together. Vincent lifted him up, this child who was his son, and carried him toward the exit. Oliver's head rested against his shoulder, fitting there as if it had always belonged. The principal called out something about paperwork, but Vincent didn't stop. Nothing mattered except getting to the hospital, to Sophie, to the family he never knew he had, racing back in the car. Oliver sat pressed against Vincent's side. Do you really have gray eyes like mine? Vincent looked down at him. Exactly like yours? Mom has brown eyes. She's really pretty. She paints pictures of stars and oceans. She says art is how we show people the beautiful things we feel inside. Oliver's voice dropped to a whisper. Is she going to die? No, Vincent said with absolute certainty, making a promise he had no power to keep but every intention to fulfill. Your mother is strong. She's going to fight, and we're going to be there when she wakes up. The hospital appeared ahead, its windows glowing against the twilight. Vincent's phone buzzed. A text from Natalie. Sophie out of surgery. Critical, but stable. I see you, fourth floor. Vigil begins. Vincent carried Oliver through the hospital corridors, navigating past stares from staff who recognized his face from business magazines. The ICU waiting area was quieter, designed for families facing the worst moments of their lives. Natalie met them at the door, her expression carefully neutral. Can we see her? Oliver asked immediately. Soon, sweetheart, Natalie said, kneeling down. The doctors need to make sure she's stable first. But she made it through surgery. That's a very good sign. A doctor in surgical scrubs approached, her expression professionally sympathetic. Family of Sophie Chen? Vincent stood, still holding Oliver. I'm Vincent Castellano. This is her son, Oliver. I'm his father. The doctor nodded. Miss Chen sustained severe injuries, broken ribs, internal bleeding, and significant head trauma. We've repaired the internal damage and relieved pressure on her brain. The next 72 hours are critical. We're keeping her in a medically induced coma to allow her brain to heal. Waiting for tomorrow. When can we see her? Vincent asked. You can see her now for a few minutes. But I need to prepare you. She has tubes and monitors. It might be frightening for your son. Oliver lifted his head from Vincent's shoulder. I want to see my mom. I'm not scared. They followed the doctor through sterile corridors to a private room. Vincent had already made calls during the car ride. Sophie would have the best care, the best specialists, the best chance at survival. Money couldn't fix everything, but it could remove obstacles. The room was dim, filled with the steady beep of monitors. Sophie lay motionless in the bed, her face pale against white pillows. Bandages covered part of her head. Tubes connected her to machines that breathed for her, monitored her heart, tracked her life. Mommy, Oliver whispered, tears streaming down his face. Vincent set him down gently. Oliver approached the bed and carefully took his mother's hand. I'm here, Mom. I'm okay. Vincent came. He's my dad. You were right. He has eyes like mine. Promises made. Vincent stood beside them, looking down at the woman he had loved and lost and found again in the cruelest way possible. Sophie's face was still beautiful, despite the injuries, despite the tubes and monitors. He remembered how she used to smile, how her whole being seemed to radiate light. I'm so sorry, he whispered, for everything. For not fighting harder, for believing the lies, for 7 years of absence. But I'm here now. We both are. And I promise you, Sophie, when you wake up, everything will be different. Oliver looked up at him. Do you love my mom? Vincent met his son's eyes. More than anything in this world, the boy nodded, satisfied. Good, she deserves someone who loves her. She works really hard. Sometimes she cries at night when she thinks I'm asleep, but she always makes sure I'm happy. New beginnings in darkness. The doctor appeared at the door. I'm sorry, but you need to let her rest now. You can come back in a few hours. Vincent lifted Oliver again. They returned to the waiting area where Natalie had arranged blankets and pillows. The hospital staff, recognizing Vincent's name and influence, had converted a consultation room into a private space for them. Oliver curled up on a small couch, exhausted from fear and emotion. Vincent sat beside him, one hand resting on his son's shoulder. The boy fell asleep within minutes, his breathing evening out. You're staying, Natalie observed. Sitting across from them, Vincent looked at his sleeping son, then toward the ICU, where Sophie fought for her life. I'm not leaving. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever again. What about your company? Your mother? My mother, Vincent said quietly, his voice carrying steel beneath the softness, will answer for what she's done. And my company will survive without me, for however long this takes. They both will. Because nothing matters more than this, than them. Seeds of the future. Natalie smiled for the first time since he'd arrived. Sophie would be glad to hear you say that. She never stopped loving you, you know? Even after everything. Even when she had every reason to hate you. Vincent closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 7 lost years. When she wakes up, I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. Outside, night settled over Chicago. In the ICU, monitors beeped steadily, tracking Sophie's fight for survival. In the waiting room, a billionaire kept vigil beside the son he'd just met. Holding on to hope and promises, the truth had finally surfaced after years buried beneath lies. Now, they could only wait to see if love would get a second chance to rewrite their story. The storm had passed, but the real test was just beginning. Morning light filtered through the hospital windows, pale and uncertain. Vincent hadn't slept. He sat in the chair beside Oliver's makeshift bed, watching his son's chest rise and fall with each peaceful breath. The boy looked so much like Sophie in sleep, the same delicate features, the same quiet strength visible even in rest. Natalie stirred from her position by the window, rubbing her eyes. "Any updates?" Vincent checked his phone. Dr. Morrison said Sophie's vitals stabilized through the night. Brain swelling is decreasing. They might try reducing sedation tomorrow. "That's good news," Natalie said softly. "Better than we hoped." Oliver woke slowly, his gray eyes finding Vincent immediately. "Is she awake yet?" "Not yet, buddy. But she's getting stronger." Vincent helped the boy sit up. "How about we get some breakfast and then visit her again?" Building Bridges, the hospital cafeteria, was nearly empty at 6 in the morning. Vincent ordered pancakes and orange juice for Oliver, coffee for himself and Natalie. They sat at a corner table, an unlikely family thrown together by crisis. Oliver ate slowly, his mind clearly elsewhere. "Tell me about when you met my mom," he said suddenly. Before everything went wrong, Vincent felt his throat tighten. "We met in college. She was studying art and I was in business school. I saw her in the library one night, surrounded by paint samples and sketches. She was working on a project about the intersection of technology and nature. I asked her about it. What did she say?" Oliver leaned forward, hungry for stories about his parents. "She told me that just because I understood numbers didn't mean I understood value, that some things couldn't be measured in profit margins." Natalie smiled at the memory. "She challenged me constantly, made me think about the world differently. Pieces of the pastelova absorbed this, processing. Mom says thinking differently is how we grow. She says being comfortable means you're not learning." "She's right," Vincent said. "She was always right about the important things. I was too stubborn to listen back then. Are you going to listen now?" Vincent met his son's serious gaze. "Every single day for the rest of my life." They finished breakfast and returned to the ICU, the nurses allowed. Brief visits every few hours. Each time, Oliver would take his mother's hand and talk to her about school, about his drawings, about meeting Vincent. The doctors said, hearing familiar voices helped, that somewhere beneath the sedation, Sophie might be listening, confronting the past in the second day. Vincent's phone rang with a number he recognized immediately. His mother. He stepped into the hallway to answer, his jaw tight. "Vincent, where are you?" Victoria Castellano's voice carried its usual imperious tone. "The board is in chaos. The green tech deal collapsed. You've ignored 17 calls from our attorneys." "I'm at Chicago Memorial Hospital," Vincent said coldly, "with my son, and the woman you lied to 7 years ago." Silence stretched across the line. Then Victoria spoke, her voice carefully controlled. "I did what was necessary to protect your future. You destroyed my future." Vincent's voice remained quiet, but carried edges sharp enough to cut. "Sophie was pregnant. She never wanted your money. She tried to reach me, and you blocked her. You manipulated both of us. Truth and consequences, she was unsuitable," Victoria insisted. "A struggling artist with no connections, no resources. She would have held you back from everything you've accomplished." "Everything I accomplished means nothing," Vincent said. "I built an empire on the foundation of a lie. I missed 7 years of my son's life. I let the woman I loved struggle alone because I believed your poison. Vincent, be reasonable. We can fix this. Bring the woman and child into the fold properly. Provide for them. But don't throw away your position over sentiment." Vincent laughed, a harsh sound without humor. "You still don't understand. This isn't about position or propriety. This is about love. Something you've never valued because you can't monetize it. If you pursue this path, I will fight you for control of the company. The board will side with me. Choosing what matters, then take it," Vincent said. "Take the whole empire. I'll build something new. Something that matters." And I'll do it without your influence poisoning everything I touch. He ended the call and stood in the corridor, breathing deeply. The company he'd built, the reputation he'd crafted, the approval he'd sought from a mother incapable of giving it unconditionally, all of it felt suddenly hollow. Everything okay? Natalie appeared beside him. Vincent turned to her. How do I make this right? 7 years, Natalie. How do I make up for 7 years? You can't, Natalie said gently. You can't change the past, but you can choose what happens next. Sophie needs to make that choice too when she wakes up. You hurt each other, even if it wasn't intentional. Healing takes time. Small miracles on the third day, Dr. Morrison gathered them in the consultation room. Her expression was cautiously optimistic. The brain swelling has decreased significantly. We're going to start reducing sedation this afternoon. If everything goes well, Sophie should regain consciousness within 24 hours. Oliver's face lit up with hope. She's going to be okay. She still has a long recovery ahead. Physical therapy, monitoring for complications. But yes, the prognosis is good. Vincent felt a weight lift from his chest that he hadn't realized was suffocating him. When she wakes up, what will she remember? Most patients have some confusion initially. She might not remember the accident, and she'll be disoriented. Family support is crucial during this phase. The awakening that evening. Vincent sat beside Sophie's bed while Oliver colored in a sketchbook Natalie had brought from Sophie's apartment. The boy drew pictures of spaceships and stars, narrating elaborate stories about astronauts exploring distant galaxies. Mom loves space, Oliver explained. She says it reminds us that there's always something bigger to discover, that our problems are small compared to the universe. Vincent watched Sophie's face for any sign of change. Your mom is very wise. She's the best mom in the whole world. Oliver set down his crayon and looked at Vincent seriously. Are you going to stay with us? Like a real family. The question carried the weight of a 7-year-old's entire world. Vincent chose his words carefully. I want that more than anything. But your mom needs to decide if she wants me in her life. I hurt her badly, even though I didn't mean to. She gets to choose whether to forgive me. What if she doesn't? Then I'll respect her choice. But I'll never stop being your dad. No matter what happens between your mom and me, you're my son. That doesn't change. Return to life. Oliver nodded. Satisfied with this answer, he returned to his drawing. Vincent held Sophie's hand, marveling at how small it felt in his, how delicate. This woman had survived alone, raised their son, built a life from nothing, while he swam in wealth and bitterness. Movement, Sophie's fingers twitched in his grasp. Vincent's heart jumped. Oliver, get the nurse. The boy ran to the door. Within seconds, medical staff flooded the room. Vincent stepped back, giving them space to work. They checked monitors, adjusted tubes, spoke to Sophie in calm voices. Sophie, can you hear me? Dr. Morrison leaned close. Squeeze my hand if you can hear me. A long pause. Then Sophie's hand moved. A weak squeeze. First words good. You're in the hospital. You were in a car accident. You're safe. Try to open your eyes. Sophie's eyelids fluttered. Once, twice. Then they opened slowly, revealing confused brown eyes. Her gaze swept the room, unfocused and frightened, until they landed on Oliver. Baby, she whispered, her voice rough from the breathing tube. I'm here. Mom. Oliver pushed forward, tears streaming down his face. I'm okay. You're okay. Everything's okay. Sophie's eyes shifted, scanning past the doctors and nurses until they found Vincent. Recognition flickered across her face, followed by confusion, then something that looked like fear, or perhaps hope. She tried to speak, but couldn't form the words. Don't try to talk yet, Dr. Morrison instructed. You've been through significant trauma. Rest now. Your son is here. You're safe. Questions unspoken. Sophie's eyes remained locked on Vincent, even as the medical team worked around her. Questions lived in that gaze. Years of questions compressed into a single moment. Vincent wanted to explain everything, to fall to his knees and beg forgiveness, to promise the world. But he stayed silent, letting her adjust to being awake, being alive. The medical team completed their assessment and began filing out. Dr. Morrison paused at the door. She needs rest. Keep visits short. No stress or difficult conversations until she's stronger. Vincent nodded. Oliver climbed carefully onto the bed, curling against his mother's side. Sophie's arm came up weakly to hold him. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I was so scared," Oliver whispered. But Vincent came. "He's my dad, Mom, just like you said. He has my eyes." Fragile moment, Sophie's gaze found Vincent again over their son's head. Vincent saw everything in her expression: love and pain and confusion and exhaustion. He stepped closer to the bed. "I know you have questions," he said softly. "I know you're confused about why I'm here. We have a lot to talk about. But right now, just rest. Just be with Oliver. Everything else can wait." Sophie opened her mouth, managed one word. "How I'll explain everything when you're stronger." Vincent's voice broke slightly. "I'm so sorry, Sophie. For all of it, but right now, just focus on healing, please." She studied him for a long moment. Then her eyes drifted closed, exhausted from even that brief consciousness. Oliver looked up at Vincent with worried eyes. "She's just tired," Vincent assured him. "She'll wake up again soon. This is good. This is progress." Days of recovery over the next week. Sophie's consciousness gradually improved. The tubes came out. She managed to sit up with assistance. Oliver spent every possible moment with her, filling her in on 7 years of life. Vincent remained present, but gave them space. Understanding that mother and son needed time together, Natalie served as mediator, explaining to Sophie what had happened, how Vincent discovered the truth, how he'd been there from the moment he knew. Sophie listened quietly, her face revealing little. On the 8th day, Dr. Morrison cleared Sophie for supervised walks. Vincent offered his arm as support while they moved slowly through the hospital corridors. Oliver walked ahead, chattering about a science project. The conversation Sophie spoke suddenly, her voice still weak but clear. "Why are you really here, Vincent?" He considered lying, deflecting, but remembered his promise to Oliver about truth. "Because the moment I found out about you, about Oliver, nothing else mattered. Not my company, not the merger, not my pride. Just you." Sophie stopped walking, leaning against the wall for support. "You believed I took your mother's money? You believed I abandoned you for cash. How does that change in one phone call?" "Because I learned the truth." Vincent faced her directly. "My mother lied to both of us. She blocked your calls, had security turn you away, manipulated everything to keep us apart. I believed her because I was young and stupid and hurt. But I should have fought harder. I should have questioned. I should have trusted what we had." Old wounds. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "Do you have any idea what it was like? Being pregnant, broke, trying to reach you while your people treated me like I was trying to scam you. I stood outside your building in the rain for 3 hours once, hoping to catch you leaving. Security threatened to call the police." Vincent felt each word like a knife. "I can't change the past. I can't give you back those 7 years. But I can promise you the future. Whatever you want it to look like. What I want." Sophie laughed bitterly. "I wanted you 7 years ago. I wanted you when I was working 3 jobs while pregnant. I wanted you when Oliver asked why he didn't have a daddy. What I want doesn't change what happened." "You're right," Vincent said quietly. "And if you tell me to leave, I will. But I'm asking for a chance. Not to fix the past, but to build something new. For Oliver. For us, healing together." Sophie wiped her eyes. "I don't know if I can trust you again. Trust anyone from your world. Your mother destroyed us once. What stops her from doing it again?" "Me," Vincent said firmly. "I've cut ties with my mother. I'm restructuring my company so she has no control. And more importantly, I'm different now. I spent 7 years building walls around my heart because I thought I'd been betrayed. Those walls are gone. I see clearly now." Oliver appeared around the corner, running back to them. "Mom, are you crying? Did Vincent say something mean?" Sophie smiled through her tears. "No, baby. We're just talking about grown-up things. complicated things. The boy looked between them. Are you going to be together? Like a real family? Future uncertain, Sophie glanced at Vincent, then back to Oliver. I don't know yet, sweetheart. Sometimes when people hurt each other, even by accident, it takes time to heal. We have to be patient. But you still love him, right? Oliver pressed. You told Aunt Natalie you never stopped loving him. I heard you. Sophie's face flushed. You were supposed to be asleep. Vincent felt hope flare in his chest, but kept his expression neutral. Sophie needed space to make her choice without pressure. Whatever she decided, he would respect it. Even if it destroyed him, they returned to Sophie's room in silence. Oliver climbed back onto the bed, resuming his position as guardian. Vincent stood near the window, looking out over the city. Seeds of hope, Vincent? Sophie said softly. He turned to face her. Thank you for being here for Oliver. For staying even though I've been cold to you. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. He's my son. And you're the woman I should have fought for 7 years ago. Being here isn't charity. It's where I belong. Sophie studied him with those deep brown eyes that had haunted his dreams. We'll need family counseling. All of us. Oliver included. This isn't just about us anymore. Whatever you need, Vincent agreed immediately. And you can't just throw money at problems and expect them to disappear. I built a life without your wealth. I don't need rescuing, I know. Vincent moved closer. You never needed rescuing. You're the strongest person I've ever known. I'm not here to save you. I'm here because you saved me by existing in the world. Steps forward, Sophie's expression softened slightly. That's very poetic for a businessman. I learned from an artist once. She taught me that some things can't be measured in profit margins. Vincent allowed himself a small smile. I'm a slow learner, but eventually the lessons stick. Oliver looked up hopefully. Does this mean we can be a family? It means we're going to try, Sophie said carefully. One day at a time, with lots of talking and patience and probably some arguments, but we're going to try. The boy's face split into a huge grin. Can Vincent come to my science fair next month? I'm building a model of the solar system. If your mom says it's okay, Vincent said, looking to Sophie for permission. She nodded slowly. He can come. Beginning again over the following weeks, Sophie's recovery progressed. She moved to a rehabilitation center where physical therapists helped her regain full mobility. Vincent visited daily, sometimes bringing dinner, sometimes just sitting quietly while Oliver did homework. They talked about small things at first, neutral topics, rebuilding familiarity. Gradually, deeper conversations emerged. Sophie shared stories about Oliver's childhood, the moments Vincent had missed. He told her about the emptiness that had haunted him, how success felt meaningless without someone to share it with. They began remembering who they'd been together before the world intervened. One evening, after Oliver fell asleep in Sophie's rehabilitation room, she and Vincent sat on the small balcony overlooking the city. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of approaching autumn. I've been thinking, Sophie said quietly, about second chances. About whether people can really change? Leap of faith, Vincent waited, his heart pounding. I don't think you're the same man who let your mother manipulate you. I don't think I'm the same woman who ran instead of fighting harder. Maybe we're both different now. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's better, Vincent offered. We know what we lost. We won't take it for granted again. Sophie turned to face him. I'm scared. Of trusting you. Of letting Oliver get attached and then having you leave. Of believing in us and being wrong. I'm terrified too, Vincent admitted. Of failing you again. Of not being the father Oliver deserves. Of loving you so much it breaks me if you walk away. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. Love renewed. Sophie reached out, taking his hand for the first time voluntarily since waking. Her touch sent electricity through his entire body. I'm not ready to promise forever, but I'm ready to try today. And then tomorrow, and we'll see where that leads. That's all I'm asking, Vincent said, bringing her hand to his lips. One day at a time, they sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching the city lights sparkle below. Inside, Oliver slept peacefully, unaware that his parents were slowly finding their way back to each other. The road ahead would be complicated, full of challenges and difficult conversations and old wounds that needed healing, but for the first time in 7 years, the future held possibility instead of pain. 6 months later, spring arrived with gentle rain and new beginnings. Sophie's art show at the Harrison Gallery opened to critical acclaim. Her paintings, inspired by her recovery and rediscovery of hope, resonated with viewers. Vincent stood in the corner, Oliver beside him, watching Sophie speak with collectors and critics. She glowed with confidence, her talent finally recognized. The accident had delayed her showing by months, but the wait had been worth it. Every painting sold within the first hour. Sophie's dream was becoming reality. "That's my mom," Oliver said proudly to anyone who would listen. "She's famous now." Vincent smiled. She was always extraordinary. The world just needed time to notice. Family portrait Sophie found them in the crowd, her eyes seeking Vincent instinctively. He had become her anchor again, but differently this time. Not as a savior or provider, but as a partner. They had worked hard in counseling, addressing old hurts and building new patterns. Some days were harder than others, but they faced them together. "Ready for the celebration dinner?" Vincent asked when she reached them. "Actually," Sophie said, her voice nervous, "I have something to say first." Both of you, they found a quiet corner of the gallery. Oliver looked curious, but not worried. He had adapted remarkably well to having Vincent in his life. Their bond growing stronger each week. "New chapter, Sev. Been thinking about the future," Sophie began. "About what we want our family to look like. We've spent 6 months rebuilding trust, learning each other again. And I think we've done good work." Vincent nodded, unsure where this was leading. "Oliver, your dad asked me something a few weeks ago. Something important. And I told him I needed time to think about it." Sophie pulled a small box from her purse and handed it to Vincent. "I've thought about it. My answer is yes." Vincent's hands shook as he opened the box. Pulling out the engagement ring he'd offered her one quiet evening. She had asked for time, for space to be certain. He had waited, hopeful but patient. "You're sure?" His voice cracked with emotion. "I'm sure," Sophie said, tears streaming down her face. "I want forever with you. The messy, complicated, beautiful forever we'll build together." Promises kept. Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger as Oliver cheered loud enough to draw attention from nearby guests. They laughed through tears, holding each other in the middle of Sophie's triumph. The life they had lost 7 years ago was gone, but this new life they were creating was somehow better for the pain they'd endured. "Can I be the ring bearer?" Oliver asked excitedly. "And can we get a dog?" "Families with 2 parents should have dogs." "We'll discuss the dog," Sophie said, ruffling his hair. "But yes, you can definitely be ring bearer." They walked out of the gallery together, a family rebuilt from broken pieces. Vincent thought about the man he'd been, driven by anger and ambition, measuring worth and profit margins. That man seemed like a stranger now. Sophie had taught him what truly mattered. Oliver had shown him the meaning of unconditional love. Ever after, the future stretched before them, full of possibility and promise. There would be challenges ahead. Victoria continued her attempts to regain control of Castellano Industries. Though Vincent had successfully restructured to limit her influence, Sophie's art career was taking off, bringing new pressures and opportunities. Oliver would need guidance as he grew, learning to navigate the complexities of his family's story, but they would face it all together. 3 people who had found each other, lost each other, and fought their way back through pain and truth and forgiveness. Their story wasn't a fairy tale. It was something better. It was real. Sophie looked at Vincent as they walked through the spring evening, Oliver between them holding both their hands. "Do you ever wonder what life would have been like if your mother hadn't interfered? If we'd stayed together from the beginning?" Vincent considered the question. "Sometimes, but then I realized we might not have appreciated what we had. We might have taken it for granted. The pain taught us the value of what we're building now." "Very philosophical for a businessman," Sophie teased. "I learned from an artist," Vincent replied, pulling her close. "She taught me that some things are worth more than any empire." Some things are priceless. Above them, stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Oliver pointed upward, naming constellations his mother had taught him. They walked slowly toward home, taking their time. Savoring the moment, the billboard advertising Sophie's gallery show glowed behind them, her name in lights for the world to see. But for Sophie, the true masterpiece was the life she had painted from the ruins of her past. A life filled with love, second chances, and the knowledge that sometimes the most beautiful art comes from taking broken pieces and creating something new. Their story had crashed into disaster, survived betrayal, and emerged stronger on the other side. It wasn't the ending they had planned 7 years ago. It was better because they had chosen each other twice. That made all the difference. The end.